Hello fellow gamers and welcome to another episode of The Gaming Frontier. My name's Jace.
And I'm Chris.
And this week our summary is a little shorter, but listen on as we get into the second full week of April 2016.
Well, it's looking like we're a little short on the games this week, so at least this is going to be a quick one. Let's jump straight into it. Starting on the 12th of April, we have the third entry in the Dark Souls franchise, as the imaginatively titled Dark Souls 3 will be causing players on the PC, PS4 and Xbox One to smash up their peripherals. Next up, and sticking with the dungeon theme, we have Stories: The Path of Destinies, an action RPG from Spearhead Games, releasing on PC and PS4. And finally, for the 12th of April, we have The Park, a narrative-driven horror game, coincidentally set in a theme park, published by Funcom, coming to the next generation on PS4 and Xbox One.
Moving on to the second half of this week, on the 14th of April we see the release of another action RPG, Oreo: Legacy of Kori-Odan. Published by Plugin Digital, this title will be making its way to PC. And to round off the 14th, as well as this week's releases, we have Code of Princess. Originally launched back in 2012 for the 3DS, Degika, the publishers of the game, will be launching this fast-paced JRPG to PC. And that concludes the summary of releases for this week.
Okay, so admittedly there wasn't a whole bunch of choice this week, so I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to anyone that Dark Souls 3 is going to be a top pick. If Jace wasn't going to pick it, I was. So I think we're both equally as excited for this game as each other, and it's been evidenced recently with us playing Dark Souls again. This time around we have Miyazaki back at the helm after letting the now co-directors of Dark Souls 3 in charge of the second installment. So hopefully this time around we're going to see a return to form for the series.
You'll face death, and it won't be pretty. Enough death to leave you broken, time after time.
So the Souls franchise for a lot of people really started with Demon Souls. I know here in the UK a lot of people initially imported it from the US, and from there it kind of kicked off. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong here, but I think you did do that, didn't you, Jess?
I did, yeah. I mean, when I went to Hong Kong, they had it available for me there. It was quite different. It was a good experience as a game because it was heralded as one of the hardest games of that time, really. So it was good to see it evolve into something like Dark Souls, because Demon Souls was quite basic.
Yeah, well, for me, I didn't really get the chance to play Demon Souls. My first entry in the Souls series was in fact Dark Souls, and I think when I played it, I can kind of echo what you're saying there. It was one of the more intense, more hardcore experiences in the game I've had for a while. It was challenging, interesting, and honestly, some of the boss fights were just downright amazing. I really enjoyed those. But unfortunately, I don't think you played the second one, but I felt that one kind of slipped a little. It kind of was a bit more basic. The boss fights weren't as interesting, but as most people do know, the original director, Miyazaki, wasn't around for the second one. He was busy making Bloodborne, and look how that turned out. But now he's back. Dark Souls 3 is looking to be probably the best entry in the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Bloodborne, it was one of the most anticipated, I suppose, almost launch titles for the PS4. It looked really good, you know, a Souls-E type game for the current generation. It just looked really, really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a bit jealous I don't have a PS4 to play it, to be honest, because I'd love to give it a little go. You know, the combat looked like it took a nice little tune-up, and, well, I mean, Dark Souls 3 for me, it'll probably be defined by its combat mechanics and its boss fights, so it'll be interesting to see if any of that's come over from Bloodborne whilst it's been over there. So hopefully Dark Souls 3 will bring some more pace into it. With Miyazaki back on board, as I mentioned earlier, he's been able to build on the Souls franchise from Dark Souls 2, and in his own words, he may be bringing over a couple tricks from Bloodborne. Dark Souls 3 will see the return of the magic meter from Dark Souls, so you'll be familiar with that one, Jess. However, you won't be as burdened with magic, as they're going to be introducing a second Estus Flask to the game. Now, players who don't know, the Estus Flask is primarily used to restore your HP. With the new Ash Estus Flask, however, that will help in restoring your magical energy. Now, this coupled up with a more fluid movement system reminiscent of that from Bloodborne, the pacing of this game is going to be a little bit different from the previous installments.
Yeah, that Ash Estus Flask sounds really interesting, because can you imagine that in Dark Souls when magic was just absolutely overpowered in that game? It was crazy. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to see that a new element to the gameplay being introduced. But looking forward to Dark Souls 3 as much as I am. I didn't actually play neither Bloodborne or Dark Souls 2, so I don't really have a platform for it apart from Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls. But I don't know, like I've always enjoyed the gameplay, but what else are they bringing to the table?
Oh right, well, you're going to be in for a bit of a surprise then. So one thing that I'll mention that was in Dark Souls 2 that they're going to kind of bring over to Dark Souls 3 is this idea of gravestones. So in Dark Souls 2 you had torches that you would light, and they would just light the path basically. But in Dark Souls 3 they're going to be making these into gravestones, so they'll have a similar function where they'll be your torches, but you'll also be able to interact with these, and they'll give you little nuggets to the story, you know, just to build on the area that you're in maybe.
I mean, the gravestones are quite an ominous thing as well, from the sounds of it, considering the game is centered around you dying as well, so... Oh, okay, gravestones... Gonna be an overarching theme, I suppose, with the amount of deaths that might occur in this game, so... I mean, anything else?
Yeah, there is. They're not just gonna put stuff in the story, they're buffing up the combat system as well. Weapons will be getting...
That's exactly what I want to hear.
I've not told you what it is yet, but weapons are going to be getting their own unique weapon arts. So what this is it's a special ability you can use with your weapon. They'll be different from weapon to weapon. These will enable extra damage, for example, or unique movesets for some weapons for a limited amount of time at the cost of magic points. Now that's something completely new to the series. Players haven't really had a chance to mess with that, but what they've seemed to be doing really is they've just taken all the good bits from the previous Souls games and Bloodborne, and they give them these and some other tools just to give players a more tactical edge. So with the Ash Estus Flask and the weapon arts, you know, players are going to have more control over the character than ever, and with faster movement speed on top of that, it's going to be, well, a new experience, maybe the best one they've done yet. Well, it looks like we're at a time for Dark Souls 3, and me personally, I'm really excited to get a new Souls game, and I've had a little bit of a sneaky peek at some of the streams going on, and although I've tried not to spoil too much, it really is looking like the best Souls game that we've seen so far, something that will definitely take up a lot of my time. Now, if you're looking to spend some time in the notoriously difficult Souls universe, you can pick this up on PC, PS4 and Xbox One on April 12th.
So seeing as Dark Souls 3 was kinda stolen from me for this week, my top pick will be Code of Princess, a side-scrolling beat-em-up developed by Studio Saizensen. The game was originally released in 2012 for 3DS, with only the digital version of the game coming to Europe, unfortunately. However, this time, no restrictions, as Code of Princess is making its way to the worldwide audience on PC. The gameplay in Code of Princess follows the same formula as old classics like Final Fight and Double Dragon with its down-to-basics beat-em-up style. But similar to a more recent release, Dragon's Crown, Code of Princess adopts character leveling and stat building as well. So things really that you'd see in traditional RPGs. Now the movement in the game isn't quite as free-roaming as previous games like Final Fight and Dragon's Crown. Your character is restricted to these Z-axis planes, 3 of them in fact, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. Now, these games might be quite simple and straightforward, but growing up, from when I first laid my hands on Final Fight as a kid, I've always enjoyed the side-scrolling beat-em-up genre.
Yeah, I think that goes double for me, to be fair. I didn't quite get my hands on Final Fight first. I was a Sega kid myself, so I ended up getting Streets of Rage, but, you know, don't hold that against me. I did eventually get round to Final Fight, so you know I've still got it. One of the things you mentioned there is the RPG system in there, like the ability to add stats to your character. I find that to be quite interesting. I don't think outside of Dragon's Crown, which I only had a little bit of a go at, to be honest, I've ever really played another side-scrolling beat 'em up that does that.
Yeah, taking those points from Dragon's Crown, I think Code of Princess works off a pretty solid formula in the fact that, you know, there's been so many side-scrolling beat-em-ups, and to add the element of an RPG in it, it might help grab hold of the player. So we'll have to see how that plays out, because to be honest, I love Dragon's Crown, and Coda Princess, if it's more of the same thing, it's going to be pretty exciting. So the bulk of the content for Coda Princess is going to come from the amount of characters that you can unlock in this game. I believe it is around 50, maybe over 50. So you've got a lot there to do. You've got a campaign mode where you sort of get to know who they are, what they do. Basically gives them a bit more of a background. And then you've got your free mode, which is where you can play all these different characters, and bonus missions where you can use it to level up or get better equipment.
I did have a look at the list of characters that is available, and some of them on there are actually quite comical. For example, one I saw was an orphan, which is quite literally an orphan child that punches things to death. So, you know, it's not like it takes itself too seriously, and I kind of like that. You can also play some of the enemies as well, like I think there's a tree enemy in there. That would be quite fun to beat people up with. So I can see people having their share of fun with the extra characters. But one thing for me that kind of has me worried is this Z plane. Now, in previous games it's been kind of nice because that's been kind of a fluid system, but in this being restricted to 3 lanes, kind of worries me that at some point, you know, you're just going to get bogged down with enemies, and it might even be frustrating for some people trying to figure out some sort of way to get from one end of the screen to the other when all 3 lanes are just locked up with enemies. And you know, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to play that one out.
Yeah, I can sort of understand your concerns with the Z plane, really. As you said, with the amount of enemies on screen, you do have to be really good at navigating these 3 different planes.
Yeah.
But the other feature that the game offered was online multiplayer, so you can play with anyone around the globe, your friends included. So it's going to be quite manic when you're all sort of on screen at once. But you know, the game itself has enough features there to keep a player occupied. And I, for one, looking at the presentation and the style of the game, the side-scrolling beat 'em up, I've always loved that as a kid and even now. So make sure you keep an eye out on this one as Coda Princess makes its PC debut on the 14th of April.
Alright then folks, that's a wrap on the releases for this week. And as always, if there are any titles we've missed, we'll be covering them on our Facebook/TGFrontier, or giving a quick shout out on our Twitter @TGFrontier, so be sure to keep your eye on those. Now if you've noticed something we may have missed, do let us know in the comments and we'll include it in the write-up on our blog. And if you like what we're doing, be sure to give us a like and a subscribe for future updates. If you have any comments on how we can improve or the format of the show, please do leave us a message below and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.